I have about 5 or 10 minutes. Once the United States gets involved with the war, we have to have a strategy. And I'm not going to go over all of the war strategy. There's just some things I want you to be aware of. It's not a matter of the US versus Germany or England versus Germany. We have 5 different fronts. So here's our picture of Europe. Germany has all of Europe, including what used to be France and what used to be Austria, right? And including Italy, even though Italy is still its own spot. And it is pushing heavily into the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union has not been defeated, but it has been seriously compromised. Okay? Spain is not involved, so we won't include Spain. We have North Africa here. This is a horrible version of Africa, but just assume that it's here. Spain isn't involved with this war. England and Ireland, right? England is on the opposing side. Germany has got forces here, 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 here. The Netherlands, the Dutch, all the area. Germany has just a huge territory. Okay. United States is way over here. On the opposite side of the world is Japan, which don't have a big enough world to get. Okay. So when we think about the war, we have to understand 5 different fronts, and so I've listed it there. The first front that for the United States was important was in the Pacific on water, so Navy. This is when Japan bombs Pearl Harbor, wipes out our Navy. That is our first front that we're thinking about. It's not the first one we attack, it's just the one that's most apparent to us, because we're having to rebuild the Navy, and that's a front that we have to send ships to try to push the Japanese Navy back. That's one front. Another front is the North Atlantic. This is the Atlantic. So up here against Germany. So North Atlantic, and this would be Navy, and it's mainly against Germany. It's the German ships that are out here, U-boats, submarines, everything. The next one is in North Africa. And this is also against Germany. Fourth one is the air fight. Because England is still successful, has not been taken over, there is an air battle, an air front. So the air force between England and Germany. So that's the fourth front. And then the last front, which is actually one of the biggest fronts, is the land conflict against Germany. So we have 5 different fronts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. You're not seeing this, but I'll put that up in a second. So Pacific Front, North Atlantic, North Africa, European air, European land. Here is a much bigger, prettier picture. These are the fronts. 1, 2, 3, air 4, land 5. Okay. So how do we approach this? There are 3 stages that we have to plan on. The United States has been preparing militarily, but we weren't involved with this war. England has been in the war for 2 years. So once the United States gets involved, we set up strategy and plans. And because the United States, frankly, has the most power in the world in terms of military, they are beginning to take over leadership immediately. And so we create 3 stages of the war. We're planning on these 3 stages. We don't really know yet, because at the first stage, we're not quite sure, but if we look at it in hindsight, we can divide the war into 3 stages. The first stage has to do to stop the bleeding, and I'm just going to say stop the bleeding. You understand that this is a colloquial term. This is not going to be under any military document, but the fact is, Japan took out our Navy, and Germany is blasting into England, going through North Africa. It's expanding, and the Allies are losing. So the first stage has to be to stop that loss, stop the bleeding. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the Pacific, and our primary goal in the Pacific is to prevent expansion. Not to push back, but to stop Japanese expansion in the Pacific. And at the same time, we want to stop the expansion in Africa. We know that the 4-year plan, Hitler wants to go through Africa, then go to South America, and then go into the United States. And so we have to stop the expansion. And so that's where we focus. We're going to look at the Pacific, and we're going to look in North Africa. At the same time, we're also going to try to stop the ships of North Atlantic. This is important because if the United States cannot send supplies from the United States to England, then England is going to be in bad shape. So we need to put a great deal of force to make sure that we have a shipping channel that can go from England to United States to England. So we have to put in a large naval attack. The Navy has the first emphasis, both in the Pacific and in the North Atlantic. And the second thing is once we're doing this, we're also going to try to prevent the German bombers from constantly attacking England. This is all stage 1. So stop Japan in Pacific, stop German advances in North Atlantic, and stop Germany in North Africa. Those are the 3 priorities. Stage 2 is after we stop the bleeding, then we are going to soften the obstacles. And say soften the target. So Germany was winning in 41 when Pearl Harbor was attacked. So for the rest of 42 and a little bit of 43, the United States is going to put all of its energy with England and France and everybody else to stop the Japanese expansion in the Pacific, stop the Germans in the North Atlantic, and try to stop the movement in Africa. They're going to be relatively successful. So by stage 2, we are now going to soften. And how do you soften? Well, by 43, England is going to, and the United States is going to have air supremacy, which means that we are going to actually have so many airplanes on England that we are going to wipe out most of the German Air Force, which means that instead of Germany going into England to bomb, we are going to go over Europe and Germany to bomb. We're still going to be under risk. They're still going to have anti-aircraft guns, but we don't have to have the same fear of German air planes attacking. So the German Air Force has been wiped out, and we're going to just bomb as much as we can to soften the target. At the same time, we're also going to start doing what's called island hopping. So in the Pacific, we're going to try to advance and push the Japanese back one island at a time. Very difficult, one island, the losses are extremely high, but that's the goal. And lastly, we're going to do this soft spot because we have secured North Africa. And by 1943, we start pushing right into Italy. That's the weakest part for Germany because of all these mountains, the Swiss Alps. It's hard for Germany to defend it, and Italy is not nearly as strong as Germany. So we get through this, and by 1943, we actually take over Italy. And Italy shifts sides because Mussolini is defeated. Mussolini is killed by his own people in 1943, and now all of the troops, the Allied troops, are trying to move forward. We aren't going to win this way because that same barrier of mountains that makes it difficult for Germany to protect Italy is going to make it difficult for us to get into Germany. So we're just softening the territory. The third stage is going to be ending the war. And this is when we have the famous D-Day invasion. And that took 2 years to plan. It's the largest invasion in history. We had to stop the bleeding, we had to push back, we had to get air supremacy, we had to bomb the heck out of these areas, and then we had to have this huge buildup. And so we push in, and in 1944, we finally attack and get into France. So we start moving this direction. It's still another 6-8 months before we're able to get into Germany. Very difficult. By the time we're pushing in this, the Soviet Union, meanwhile, has been pushing back. And by the time we've had D-Day, they're beginning to push in on the other side of Germany. By April of 1945, Germany is going to be defeated. By August of 1945, Japan will finally be pushed back. We'll talk about this a little bit later because I don't want to get into it, but the atomic bomb is used in Japan because Germany had already been defeated in Europe. It didn't get invented until about, 4 or 5 months after the war ends in Europe. In Europe, we call this VE Day, Victory in Europe. In August 10th, 1945, we call it VJ Day, Victory in Japan. And that's the way the war proceeds on a strategy. I'm not going to get too much into this. I think this is all we need to know right now in terms of the military. When we come back on Thursday, we're going to talk about the entry of the Cold War. Thank you. We're going to talk about the start of the Cold War. The war is important to understand in its causes and why the United States got in it, because it's the only way we can understand what's going to happen with the Cold War, which will be 5 years later. This is World War II. On Wednesday, I want to talk about Cold War, which means I want you guys to be focusing your reading on the end of World War II, how it ended, and what happened immediately thereafter. So otherwise, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you later. Good luck and good day.